Chapter 331, Who, Han Yang? There were about 60 people in the conference room. In addition to the artists, there were agents, songwriters, public relations teams, and so on. In the music department, Maki was in charge of everything. She had the greatest power there. The content of the meeting was rather detailed, as it included the goals of recent development, an analysis of the situation, and task arrangement. There were also some special arrangements. Xuanhuan would soon make her second album. She would also act in 2 programs and a few commercials. This made everyone feel that the company was trying to make Xuanhuan popular. Bai and the others also had access to resources more or less. As far as Xian was concerned, no one mentioned anything about her. This made Xuanhuan, who was trying to control herself in the morning, constantly look at her scornfully. Defiant. Very defiant. Extremely defiant. Xian looked very calm, so the others couldn't see a difference based on her expression. However, deep inside, she was still a little excited. After all, when her 10 songs had all been recorded, the people in front of her would definitely be shocked. Maki put together the documents in front of her and spoke up. That is all for today's meeting. You should go back and prepare. Try to achieve more during the next 2 months. Do you have anything to add? No, I believe that my next album will definitely become platinum. I will not let you down, system. I will not let the company down either, Xuanhuan said with a smile. Then, she looked at Xian defiantly. Her expression seemed to be saying, look, I, Xuanhuan, can always get the resources I want. The company is focused on training me. What about you? All right, dismissed. Maki looked at Xuanhuan with satisfaction. Suddenly, a lazy voice was heard. Hold on. Everyone turned to look that way. Even a few people who had just stood up sat down again and looked at Zif. What did she want to do? Everyone was a bit confused. She had been temporarily ditched. What was the point of saying anything now? What do you want? Maki asked while looking at Zif. Director, you have arranged the work of the photography teams for the next 2 weeks. What should we do then? Sister Yan is also making a new album. I haven't had the time to tell you. Director, please arrange a team to take care of our album. When she said that, everyone in the conference room began talking. Many artists and agents were whispering to each other. Their eyes were full of doubt, surprise and disdain. One could even hear some comments vaguely. The album that she just released didn't sell well, yet she is still making a new one. Does she think that the company's resources are as cheap as cabbages? They should reflect on the bad sales of the last album. Perhaps they will not be given any resources for the time being. Are they still thinking about making a new album? They are really optimistic. Of course, there were very few onlookers who supported Xian. Xian just needs a good album. If the quality of the last album had been good, it would definitely have been a hit. Unfortunately, making albums is not the issue right now. She offended Director Fu, but she insists on making a new album. Isn't she causing trouble by doing this? There were also some louder voices, like the hustle and bustle of the vegetable market. She can just release an album at will. The resources are limited. Okay, we have waited for half a year to make a new album. She is ridiculous. Xuanhuan can keep making albums non-stop. It's understandable, since she has good results. However, somebody whose last album didn't sell well can't demand resources. Is she daydreaming? Among these people, some expressed their disdain for her, others complained, and the rest were purely looking on. Xian looked around without saying anything. This was the entertainment circle. It was a world where only the fittest could survive. There was no fairness, and one needed strength, connections, popularity and many other factors. When Xian had been popular, she had been the most famous star in the Royal Entertainment Company and had been given the best resources. Back then, when they had been having a meeting, almost everyone would look at her. They had all been envious. Now, her golden days had passed. So what she received was just disdain and criticism. It didn't matter. Xian didn't care about this. This time, her boutique album would help her make a great comeback and let everyone see her again. The popular Xian was coming back. In the face of these arguments, Zif did not say anything either. She just looked at Maki, who was sitting in the most central position. Maki waited for 20 seconds. When everyone stopped talking, she opened her mouth and said with a smile, "It's good that you have the desire to make an album, but the latest resources of the company have been allocated. Don't be too hasty. There will be opportunities again in the future. I didn't say that I wanted some songs, I just said that we'll need a photography team soon," Zif replied. "If you don't have any songs, why do you need a photography team?" Maki asked as she narrowed her eyes. "Ha ha." Xuanhuan smirked and said, "Do you have to draw people's attention here? If you were asking for song resources, I wouldn't say anything. However, you want a photography team without any songs? You are being unreasonable." After saying this, Xuanhuan smiled hypocritically and said, Xian, I understand that you are anxious, but you can't treat everybody in the company like idiots. There have been only 8 fine songs recently, I have 4, and others also have some. Plus, only excellent songs can be included in the album. There are no resources. Do you want to randomly pick 10 songs from the database that nobody likes at all? Right? If you pick the songs randomly, we won't need to think about it. The sales will be as bad as before. Xuanhuan's agent interjected. What's this got to do with you? Mind your own business. Zif glanced at Xuanhuan, and then looked at Maki and said, Director, we have prepared the songs and can shoot the MV soon, so could you give us a photography team? No way. This time, in the back of the conference room, an agent named Wang stood up and spoke kind of angrily. Qian has waited for 3 months, and it is not easy for us to make an album. System, you can't give them whatever they want, even if they want to make an appointment. They have to line up, right? The reason she stood up was because, according to the latest arrangements, she and Qian, whom she was responsible for, had the lowest ranking. If Maki agreed to arrange a photography team for Xian, they would definitely give way for her. This was the least she could do. Wang, sit down first, don't get worked up, I didn't say anything yet. Qian's recent performance is obvious to all. Your album schedule will not be changed. Maki waved her hand and calmed her down. Then, she looked at Xian and said with a sigh, Xian, Zif, I understand your feelings. Everyone wants to have good results. However, to achieve good results, it is necessary for you to have good songs. You should not be too anxious. Just wait patiently. When there are some good songs, I will make arrangements for you. That's the truth. They are just being unreasonable here. Well, let's go back and prepare the new album. Xuanhuan curled her lips and shook her head while speaking to her agent. Then, she stood up to leave. Suddenly, who said that we don't have good songs? Zif sneered while she stood up. Without the resources of the company, where did you get these songs? Xuanhuan paused and turned her head before saying, Don't tell me that you got some defective songs from the internet. Yeah, we got them from the internet. These 10 songs were written by Xian's fan. Zif looked around at everyone. Fan? Xuanhuan looked up and laughed. After hearing this, the others were stunned. They were just about to laugh at her when Zif spoke slowly. I think everyone has heard the name of this fan. His name is Han Yang. Ha ha. Ah? Suddenly, Xuanhuan's laugh came to an abrupt halt and her eyes gradually widened. Who? Han Yang? That extraordinary songwriter? Puff? Ahem, ahem, ahem. Oh my god, really? Who did she just say it was? Everyone was shocked. They had never thought that Zif would actually utter this name. Han Yang. This was a name full of magic. The songs he had written not long ago now dominated various lists. They had swept everything aside, making the artists who had recently released their albums rather miserable. Who was that? Maki suddenly stood up and stared at Zif. Han Yang. After seeing everyone's shock, Zif felt happy. She smiled before saying, "Who would dare say that his work is defective?" Xuanhuan, did you say that just now? I didn't. Xuanhuan shivered slightly while her eyes roved. She immediately shook her head. Ridiculous. Han Yang's name had been becoming more and more influential. Who would dare say that his work was defective? Are you sure that it is Han Yang? Maki's heart skipped a beat as she spoke again. Of course, we have heard the songs, which are 10 in total. Every song is incomparable, Zif said with pride. The moment those words were out of her mouth, everyone around gasped in surprise. What, 10 songs? No, how is it possible? He never wrote so many songs for one person before. My goodness, 10 songs written by Han Yang in one album, it will definitely become a hit. Everyone was shocked. They didn't doubt Zif's words anymore. If she had dared to say this here, it was absolutely true. Maki became so excited that she got goosebumps. God, 10 fine songs by Han Yang, with enough a promotion, the result would be absolutely amazing. In other words, given that Han Yang was in his prime time now, his 10 songs could make an E-list singer a B-list, or even an A-list singer overnight. His songs were invaluable. Upon thinking of this, Maki's attitude towards Xian changed. If her album was released, she would regain her popularity. But, could she do it now? Could she train her wholeheartedly? Li Cheng would not agree. Then, her 10 songs. At the moment, Maki was lost in thought. Director, in that case, can you give us the best photography team? Zif asked as she looked at Maki. When Zif asked this time, there were no more arguments in the room. Xuanhuan was looking at Xian. She was totally shocked, and envy and jealousy filled her eyes. They were talking about 10 great songs written by Han Yang. Chapter 332, A Sensation. Maki was still thinking. She didn't know at all how to deal with this. 1. Thanks to the hottest 10 songs written by Han Yang and her promotion, there was no doubt that Xian would make a great comeback and become popular again. She would become the top star of Royal Entertainment Company and maybe get even more popular than she had been before. She did not doubt that, as Xian's popularity had been high before, by using her experience in various aspects, she would certainly be more successful this time. 2. Would Li Cheng allow her to help Xian, even though these 10 songs would be a hit? Her future development was also controlled by Director Fu. Helping her would get her in trouble. Moreover, she finally could rely on Li Cheng. She had contributed so much to keep herself safe. How could she be willing to face such a crisis? If the quality of Han Yang's 10 songs was superb, as Zif had said, and they were incomparable, she would have the confidence to enhance the popularity of 10 artists. However, if she did that, Xian would completely abandon her. Maki did not know what to do. After hearing Zif's words, she rolled her eyes and thought for a while. Deep inside, she gradually gravitated toward the second thought. However, she did not intend to say anything for the time being. She smiled and spoke up. Congratulations, you were able to get 10 songs from Han Yang, which is very nice and praiseworthy. After saying that, she pretended that things were difficult and hesitantly said, however, the photography teams have already been arranged. I think that we should wait a few days and talk about this later. It is better for you to make use of this period to practice the songs well. What do you think, Xian? When she said that, everyone present turned to look at Xian. She remained as aloof as ever and said nothing from beginning to end. No one noticed the disappointment in the depths of Xian's eyes. Even now, Maki still wouldn't give her any resources. This seemed self-explanatory. She was also one of the people that Maki wanted to suppress. The room slowly quietened. One could even hear a needle drop. Under everyone's gazes, Xian slowly stood up. She looked at Maki, shook her head faintly, and spoke lightly. If it is not convenient, we won't need to do that. A photography team can also be hired by paying money. Fi. Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked out of the meeting room with Zif. This The smile on Maki's face gradually froze. Everyone else looked at each other and began to talk. Zhan is going to be a superstar. 10 songs written by Han Yang. It's unbelievable. Compared to her, I feel so unlucky. I followed Han Yang's Weibo and left more than 100 comments, but I didn't even get one song. At the last meeting, they said that anyone who got a song by Han Yang would be rewarded, right? Yeah, it seems that luck now favors Zhan. With this operation, she can definitely make a comeback. All the people present were talking. Meanwhile, Xuanhuan felt extremely embarrassed, as if someone had slapped her in the face. She mocked them at first, but they just said calmly that they had already gotten the songs from Han Yang. When Zif asked that question, she became so weak that she just said, I didn't. It was so embarrassing. Humphrey. Xuanhuan bit her lip hard and stamped her feet. Then, she left quietly. Others also stood up successively and left with emotion. Maki walked back all the way to her office. She had lost her mind. She just didn't know what to do. Zhan and Zuf returned to the office. It's so cool. Did you see those people's stunned faces? Ha ha ha, great. When Xuanhuan heard that, she looked like she had just eaten SHT. Great. Zif sat down on the sofa, shaking her head as she spoke. She had been depressed for a long time, so venting her anger made her feel really good. All right, Zhan said with a smile. Go on, let's take a detailed look at the 10 songs. I want to finish recording the songs today. Contact the recording studio later and give them double the usual commission. We will finish the songs overnight. We'll finish all of them today. Isn't that too hasty? Zif was stunned. Any songs written by Han Yang are usually released on the internet the next day, right? That's why we need to release them tomorrow. Zhan grinned. There was another reason she did not mention. While they had been in the meeting room, she had noticed Maki's sparkling eyes. She was definitely not thinking about how to help her. Zhan and Maki had worked together for a few years, thus, she could tell that the look in her eyes had been hesitant. She had been considering the potential gains and losses. Why had she behaved like that? Did she covet Han Yang's 10 songs? Whether she did or not, Zhan planned on being vigilant. Zif didn't think too much. She was still very excited right now. After hearing these words, she stood up and said, shall we continue then? Let's try the song The Chaser. Wow, I almost forgot it. The song that you just sang was melodious. It's very good. Han Yang is amazing. He can even write good healing songs. Let's practice. If we get more familiar with the songs, we can record them much more efficiently in the studio at night. Zhan nodded. They sat in front of the computer and started to work again. On the other side of the corridor, in Maki's office, what was happening was similar to what Zhan thought. System, you have to find a way to deal with this. Zhan is an artist of our company. Of course, she must obey your orders. Plus, she can't have all of Han Yang's 10 songs. That is not right. Xuanhuan was begging Maki. I don't want too many. 4 would be enough. System, you must help me. I will definitely follow your lead after I become popular. Yeah, I know that. Let's talk about this later. Maki really had a headache. She shook her head helplessly and said, after all, these songs were given to Zhan by Han Yang. I can't directly take them from her. System, Xuanhuan's agent said, she is an artist of the company, so the songs she got also belong to the company. Why can't you arrange it? Maybe Han Yang gave her 10 songs just because of the influence of our company. All right, I will figure out a way. You can leave. Maki waved her hand. Less than 3 minutes after Xuanhuan walked out, someone knocked on the door again. Coming. 2 more people walked in. Maki looked at them helplessly and said, Bai, what's the matter? System. Bai smiled in embarrassment, but she still said, Zhan got 10 songs from Han Yang. I wonder what you will do, if it's possible. Could you leave 1 song for me? I can't promise you this. Maki frowned slightly before saying, go ahead, I will give you the resources that you deserve. Don't hitch your wagon to the stars. I have my own plans. All right then. Bai curled her lips and left with her agent. 5 minutes later, someone knocked on the door again. Come in. Maki took a deep breath impatiently. How many people had come to see her? Was the temptation of Han Yang's songs that great? It was actually really great. Even she herself was quite tempted. While looking at these people, Maki sighed and said a few words to send them away. So many people were coveting Xian's songs. She should do what they wanted? No. Maki knew that this greed was coming from the bottom of their hearts. If she had been in their place, she might have also acted the same way. When another person knocked on the door, Maki did not respond. Instead, she took out her cell phone, walked to the window, dialed Li Cheng's number, and told him about the whole thing. What did you say? An exclamation came from the phone. Just within half a day, the news that Xian had gotten 10 songs from Han Yang had spread in the whole department and the entire company like a virus. This made everyone jealous. They all envied Xian's good luck. Getting 10 songs from Han Yang was akin to winning the top prize lottery. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the music department seemed to have become a bit weird. Many people were talking about whether Maki could get some songs from Xian and distribute them to everyone. A 19-year-old man who was new in this circle licked his lips and shook his head after hearing this. In his opinion, if they really got the songs from Xian, it would be akin to robbing her. Finally, when it was 5 o'clock, everyone got off work and left. I don't know what system is thinking about. If she really gives us 4 songs, then you will be popular, Yuo. On the first floor of the hall, Xuanhuan's agent was speaking. As they were walking out, Xuanhuan looked a little excited. After hearing these words, she shook her head and said, I went to systems office just now. She said that the result will be out tomorrow. I also called Mr. Li and he gave me a positive answer. That's great. The agent's eyes lit up. Right now, 90% of the most popular songs on the ranking list are Han Yang's. One could say that whoever gets songs from him will be a superstar. However, public relations and publicity are also very important. There is a small number of people who are not popular despite singing his songs. Xuanhuan smiled. They are just amateur singers. The popularity of singers with professional teams is soaring. The agent smiled. While they were talking, they reached the parking lot. Upon noticing that a group of people had gathered not far from their car, the agent was curious. What are they looking at? I don't know, let's go and see, Xuanhuan said curiously. The two of them walked over. When they were near them, they heard these people discussing. Wow, this sports car is so beautiful. Of course it is beautiful, it's a Bugatti. What do you think? It's also a limited edition. It is said that this car is worth more than 60 million. It's so expensive. Let's take a photo and post it online. The car owner hasn't come yet. Xiao Li, I'll go to the door, take a photo of me. Xuanhuan and her agent went closer and finally saw what was behind the crowd. The dazzling sports car they had seen in the morning was parked there quietly. It's this car. Which big shot came to our company to play? Xuanhuan said in amazement. Meanwhile, 2 women were taking pictures in front of the car. Xuanhuan was also somewhat tempted. Take a picture of me too. Xuanhuan took out her cell phone and handed it to her agent. Then, she walked to the place near the driver's seat. Just as the woman who had been taking photos was leaving, she went closer, bent her waist slightly, put her arm on the roof, and showed off her curvy body. As her agent was ready to take photos of her, zoom. Suddenly, the headlights of the sports car flashed a few times. Then, a sarcastic voice came from behind them. Oh, are you taking photos with our car? Did we agree on this? Chapter 333, Recording Songs. Swish, swish, swish. More than a dozen people looked back at the same time. They found that Xian and Zif were standing behind them. Xian wore a pair of sunglasses. so people couldn't see the expression in her eyes. However, it seemed that even though she didn't wear sunglasses, they could just see her pretty yet calm face clearly. Although Zhan had just returned to the company, they knew that she always remained aloof. She didn't like to speak or smile and always took things seriously. However, her aloofness was not necessarily real. They just couldn't see any other aspects of her. If they could see her from Zhang Han's perspective, they would know that this woman was sometimes as shy as a little girl or as attractive as a sexy lady. They would be surprised if they saw her like that. Zuf was different. She didn't wear sunglasses. Instead, she was looking at Xuanhuan with curled lips. She walked over to the shocked Xuanhuan, waved the car key in her hand randomly, looked up and down, and shook her head slightly before speaking. "Excuse me, we have to get in the car. Can you step aside?" Whoosh. Xuanhuan's face became red in an instant. Although she was really ashamed, there was nowhere to hide. With a dull look in her eyes, she nodded like a machine and stepped aside. She was at a loss as she watched Zuf and Zhan get in the limited edition Bugatti Veyron Black Bess, which was only owned by big shots in her opinion. Zoom, zoom, zoom. As the attractive sound of the engine was heard, the sports car slowly left the parking lot under the gaze of people. As soon as they left, all the people around couldn't help but exclaim, "This is Zhan's car, oh my, she's so rich. It's worth more than 60 million. Oh, I may not earn so much money in my entire life. No wonder she always looks so calm. It turns out that she's filthy rich. Hey, we took photos there just now and were caught by them. What a shame. Yes. Shame. What a shame. I wished I could find a hole to crawl into." Xuanhuan's eyes turned red from shame and anger. She had already gone mad deep inside. She had been targeting Zhan all this time, yet she had just been caught leaning against her car to take pictures. This was really embarrassing for her. Zhan had been right earlier. She was just a clown. Xuanhuan felt really like a clown at this moment. She couldn't stand it. Why was her? Why must it be her? How could she drive such a luxurious supercar? It was so unfair. She was already not popular. How could this be? Xuanhuan lost her wits as she returned to her car. Her agent was silent while driving. She didn't know what to say at the moment. Based on her understanding of Xuanhuan, she knew that what had happened was definitely a great blow in Xuanhuan's heart. She had been ridiculing Zhan for a long time, and they had always been opponents. However, Zhan didn't care at all. She had just driven away in a supercar she could only admire. There was no need to say anything. The facts had already slapped her in the face. Upon returning to the residence, Xuanhuan sneaked into her bedroom, closed the door, threw herself on the bed, and pressed the pillow against her head. She didn't stop screaming until she needed more oxygen. She sat up, her hair already messy, and breathed deeply. About a minute later, she took out her phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Lee, Zhan was driving a Bugatti Veyron worth more than 60 million today. I believe that Zhan may have found a sugar daddy." "What did you say? Really?" Mr. Lee exclaimed. After Xuanhuan confirmed this, Mr. Lee hung up the phone. He had been playing online games in the game room at home. However, after hearing the news, his face darkened. A supercar worth more than 60 million. Even he couldn't afford this. Things seemed to be getting out of his control. What is going on here? Is she really being taken care of by a rich man? Am I really going to lose her? Li Cheng gritted his teeth. After thinking for a moment, he became a little angry. 10 songs written by Han Yang, a supercar worth 60 million. Where did she get all these things? He took out his phone and dialed Wu Chengdong's number. "Uncle Wu, it's about what I told you earlier. I just talked with Makey and confirmed that we have 10 songs written by Han Yang. Uncle Wu, I think you need to deal with this in person." "Okay, I will ask Makey to check it now." After hanging up the phone, Li Cheng called Makey hurriedly. "Are you still at the company?" "No." "Then go back to the company now. Contact the network department. Go to Zhan's office and check her computer. Get the 10 songs first. Tomorrow, Uncle Wu will deal with this matter in person. Xian had gotten 10 songs, which had made people feel very shocked and envious. However, as time went by, a small number of people also began to take action. People often said, "It's hard to fight for sovereignty over rivers and mountains, but it's harder to keep what you have already acquired." There was no doubt that these songs were already being coveted by others. Xian had a vague premonition of this. How would she deal with it? Meanwhile, at Meng Meng's recreational restaurant, after learning that Xian would come back early, Zhang Han had prepared some meals in advance. In addition to egg fried rice and noodle soup, there were also steaks for dinner. Zhao Feng had slaughtered 2 cows for Instructor Liu and the others. The meat, which was suitable for making steaks, had been sent to the restaurant by Zhao Feng. This was enough for Zhang Han's family and the other members to eat. At 5:30, Xian and Zif came back. After sitting for 10 minutes, they started having dinner. "Eat slowly, what's the rush?" Zhang Han told Xian and Zif, who were eating very quickly. "We'll go to the recording studio. I've already told you." Xian licked her lips as she replied, "Why are you so anxious to go to the recording studio?" Zhang Han asked in confusion. There was no need to be so anxious. They could rest for a while after dinner and go there later. "We have already made an appointment. It starts at 6:30, but we have to arrive there in advance. We need to record all the songs tonight. It is quite a lot of work. You don't have to wait for me at night. I'm afraid I'll be back after midnight," Xian said. "You'll finish recording them in one night? There's no need." Zhang Han was stunned. He put down his chopsticks as he spoke. "You don't know that, brother-in-law. Any songs written by Han Yang are usually released the next day," Zif muttered while eating steak. "Who said that?" Zhang Han found this ridiculous. He didn't know that himself. Who had set this rule? "I want to finish recording them soon so that I can relax." Xian smiled lightly. "All right." Upon seeing Xian's expression, Zhang Han realized that his words were useless. Thus, he stood up and went downstairs. A minute later, Zhang Han walked up with a bottle of mineral water that contained the spirit water from Mount New Moon. "Take this, you can't be too tired. Protect your throat. Remember to drink some water after singing for a while." Zhang Han put the mineral water bottle on the table in front of Xian. "Got it." Xian smiled sweetly. Her eyes were full of gentleness. It was so good to be cared for. Actually, it was so good to have him. After the meal, Xian and Zuf took their bags and left. Of course, Xian also took the water Zhang Han had given her. Meng Meng was also very well behaved. She waved goodbye at her mama and told her to come back early to listen to Papa's story. Xian and Zuf went out and got in the Bugatti before heading to the reserved recording studio. The studio, which was located in Zikeng district, was called Tanao Music Studio and was on the 11th floor of an office building. After arriving at the building, they went upstairs. There were already 7 or 8 people waiting in the hall. The men and women were led by a man in his 40s who had some gray hair. "Hello, Teacher Liu." Xian walked over and stretched out her hand. The teacher's name was Liu Sheng, and he was a professional at song post-production. He was excellent. If Xian called him teacher, he definitely possessed true ability. "Miss Zi, hello, I've heard a lot about you." Liu Sheng shook hands with Xian and said with a warm smile, "Our people are ready. I heard that Miss Zi has 10 songs written by Han Yang." "Yes." Xian nodded. "I am very honored to record Han Yang's songs for Miss Zi." Liu Sheng's eyes lit up slightly. Han Yang was very popular now, and Xian's voice was sweet and attractive. He thought that any songs sung by her would surely become a hit. Then, Tanao Music Studio would also be credited, which was something that he was very willing to accomplish. Therefore, as the boss, he had come personally to deal with this batch of high-quality songs. "Teacher Liu, I'm very flattered." Xian smiled slightly. "When shall we start?" Liu Sheng asked. "We can start right now." "Okay, this way please." Liu Sheng took the lead and walked inside while saying, 10 songs in one day. It's a tight schedule. However, once you finish recording one song, we can start the post-production here. If we can finish recording all the songs before 1 o'clock in the morning, it is estimated that all songs will be ready before 9 o'clock. Thanks in advance, Teacher Liu, Zif said again and again. When everyone entered the studio, Xian began recording the songs. The first song was The Most Beautiful Expectation. After hearing Xian's singing, everyone present, including Liu Sheng, shook their heads and sighed with emotion. Xian's voice is really nice. This song was really written by Han Yang. The quality is incomparable. What a great song. Xian finished singing the song smoothly, surprising everyone. Even Liu Sheng was eager to prepare for the post-production and listen to the final version. However, a song had to be recorded several times, so they had a lot of work that day. While Xian was working, she was very serious. Her state that day was also very good. After singing a few songs, she would drink some water so she didn't feel tired at all. By about 1 o'clock in the morning, all 10 songs had been recorded. In the end, all the staff was still in high spirits. Liu Sheng told them that all the songs would be finished at around 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything was going smoothly. Liu Sheng escorted Xian and Zif out of the company. They got in the Bugatti and drove back to the restaurant. Before they got in the car, Xian took out her cell phone and checked the time. It's already 1:15. I guess they must all be asleep. How about you sleep at my place today? Zif asked casually. No need, just take me back to the restaurant, Xian said after thinking for a moment. She opened WeChat and found Zhang Han's name. The remark was, nerd. She sent him a voice message. Have you gone to sleep yet? She didn't get an answer for a long time. He seemed to be asleep. Xian licked her lips. There were few vehicles on the road so late at night. Zif drove very fast, so they returned to the restaurant at 1:30. After Xian got out of the car, Zif drove back to her residence. Xian walked to the door of the restaurant and saw that it was dark inside. Xian bit her lower lip lightly. It seemed that Zhang Han was really asleep. She had faintly hoped that he would still be waiting for her. She touched the door handle, opened the door and walked in. When she took a step, a black shadow suddenly moved near the door and took her into his arms tightly. Although Xian was shocked, the familiar masculine smell gradually calmed her down. So annoying. Xian snorted, even though she felt very happy deep inside. I missed you. Zhang Han hugged Xian from behind and whispered in her ear, I cooked crucian carp soup for you. Have a little and then go to sleep. Oh my goodness. Xian's heart was warmed by his words. She turned around, stood on tiptoe, put her arms around Zhang Han's neck, and gave him a kiss. Wow! What a hot kiss! Zhang Han's hands were around Xian's hips. He used force to lift her whole body in his arms. Then, Xian's legs were wrapped around Zhang Han's waist. The two of them kept kissing as they moved in the direction of the kitchen like this. They were so passionate. If Xian hadn't been on her period, something would have happened soon enough. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in life. Chapter 334, Trump Card. After kissing for a while in ways that couldn't be described in detail, Xian's arms were around Zhang Han's neck, and her red cheeks and Zhang Han's face were really close. She felt that her red lips were a little numb. She opened her mouth and said softly, Baby, it's so good to have you. You are also my baby. Zhang Han smiled and kissed Xian's face, his arms extended downwards as he said, All right, get down, I will bring you some soup. Xian responded obediently. When she quickly got down, she walked upstairs. I will change into my pajamas first. Zhang Han nodded. He went to the kitchen, took out a soup bowl, and ladled some crucian carp soup out. Crucian carp soup was a soup made from ingredients such as crucian carp, tofu, and mushrooms. It contained comprehensive and high-quality protein and was rich in nutrients. The soup was milky white, and there were 3 crucian carps smaller than a palm in it. Zhang Han had asked Zhang Feng to catch crucian carp on Mount New Moon earlier. Although they were a little small, they were still delicious. After ladling the soup out, Zhang Han took a bowl, a spoon and some chopsticks. Then, he went upstairs and placed them on the tea table. Xian came out. After gently closing the door, she walked over with footsteps filled with joy. "My goddess, please have a taste." Zhang Han put a crucian carp and a little side dish in a bowl and then poured some soup. The aroma permeated the air. Xian sat down next to Zhang Han with a smile. She took the bowl from Zhang Han, spooned the soup, blew it, and took a sip. Soon, the aroma of the fish occupied her entire mouth. "Great, it's so tasty." Xian's eyes brightened. There was no fishy smell, it was very light, yet the aroma was very strong. He was really amazing, he could do anything. Xian looked at Zhang Han happily and then spooned up the soup. Her sexy lips drew closer and she gently blew on it. Then, she brought the spoon near Zhang Han's mouth and said, "You should also have a taste." Zhang Han nodded and drank up the soup in the spoon. "Is it tasty?" Xian asked with a smile. "It's tasty." Xian chuckled happily, feeling very pleased. "Go bring your cutlery, let's have this together. I'm not hungry. I can't finish 3 fish, just go, quickly." "Okay." Zhang Han smiled and went downstairs to bring a set of cutlery. Then, he went back upstairs and sat down. Xian personally ladled the soup for Zhang Han and put 2 crucian carps in it. The two of them began to drink the soup like this. Although the soup was very good, when Xian ate a bite of fish, the tender, delicious flesh and the unique aroma of the crucian carp made her fall in love with it immediately. In a short while, Xian finished the small fish in her soup and Zhang Han gave her another one from his bowl. Xian looked at him sweetly and ate the other fish soon. Zhang Han tried to give her another fish, but Xian muttered, "No, no, you eat it, I am full, I'll have a little soup." "Okay." Zhang Han smiled and asked while eating the fish, "Have all the songs been recorded?" "Everything went very smoothly today, we were all in good condition, so the task has been completed. The final version will be available at 8 o'clock in the morning." As she spoke about the songs, happiness flashed over Xian's eyes. It was conceivable that, after the songs were released, they would definitely receive a favorable response. "You won't be busy after that, right? How about you take a few days off?" Zhang Han looked at Xian passionately. Even Xian could feel his eagerness. Xian would soon stop bleeding. Zhang Han couldn't wait any longer, he couldn't control himself. So annoying. Xian flushed as she rolled her eyes at him and said, "I'll still be very busy. Tomorrow, Zif will find someone to promote and release some songs first. There will be MV shooting, albums, conferences, concerts, and so on. I'll have to do a lot of things." "Ah?" Zhang Han's face darkened. Was it so complicated? Oh my god. If he had known that, he wouldn't have written those songs. Zhang Han didn't know what to do. He felt like he had walked into a trap set by himself. Upon seeing Zhang Han's expression, Xian burst into laughter. Her face was ruddy as she bit her lower lip and said, "I know what you're thinking about all the time. I will be busy later on, but I am not coming back." "Ah?" Zhang Han, who was stunned, smiled in embarrassment and said, "That's good." He was thinking too much. Xian would be very busy, but she would still have some time to rest. Moreover, she had said, "I'm not coming back." What did that mean? It seemed like Little Red Riding Hood was ready to be eaten by the wolf. Zhang Han looked at Xian and laughed. Silly. Xian rolled her eyes at him and added, "It's just that, I need to go to other places for the MV shooting later on." "Ah?" Zhang Han's smile gradually froze. All right. This was really a cruel fact. At night, Zhang Han and Xian hugged each other and fell asleep. Xian didn't get up until 8:30. She looked at the time but didn't care. She cleaned up and got dressed leisurely. It was almost 9:20 by the time she had breakfast. She and Zif went to Tanao Music Studio before going to the company. While they were on the way, Xian's cell phone rang. She looked at the strange number, unwilling to answer. However, although she hesitated, she still picked up the phone. Hello. Hello, Sister Yan, I am Xiao's. A nervous voice was heard from the phone. Xiao's? Xian found this very strange. She did not know anyone named Xiao's. I am Luz. I have only been at the company for slightly over 2 months. Oh. Upon hearing Luz's name, Xian remembered. He was an idle trainee. He seemed to be only 18 years old. He had just come to the company and he was always very quiet. He had to be an introvert. After remembering that, Xian asked, Luz, what's the matter? Sister Yan, here's the thing. When I came to the company today, the atmosphere in our department was very weird. Later, I heard something. Some people said that the 10 songs you got from Han Yang will be allocated by the company. I just got the news. Boss Wu is going to have a department meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon. It's confirmed that the subject will be related to the 10 songs written by Han Yang. Sister Yan, you should think about it. I heard that they are going to leave only 1 song for you. When she heard these words, Xian was stunned. Some disappointment flashed in her eyes before she said, I know that. Thank you, Luz. You're welcome, Sister Yan. I'm one of your fans. I loved your songs and movies when I was younger. When I heard this news, I immediately thought about telling you. Xian smiled and said, thank you. I'll talk to you later. I have something to do now. Okay, Sister Yan, see you, Luz said quickly. Then, Xian hung up the phone and saved the number. Name, Luz. This was a great favor. What happened, Sister Yan? Zif asked. Now that we have 10 songs from Han Yang, some people can't wait to take action, Xian replied. What, don't they feel any shame? Zif's eyes widened as her anger surged. Xian's expression was also getting colder and colder. After the red light changed into green, she opened her mouth. Go to the number 3 mansion on New Moon Curve. Why are we going there? Wait, the number 3 mansion, is Auntie Tang back? Zif's pupils shrank slightly. Yes, Auntie Tang came back last week. Wow, great. Our greatest supporter is back in Hong Kong. Let's go to the number 3 mansion. Ha ha ha. Zif suddenly became excited and quickly turned the car toward New Moon Curve. Auntie Tang's name was Tang Jie, and she was only 50 years old. She was also a superstar who used to be very popular, although she was not that powerful anymore. What was important was that she had a husband who loved her very much. Her husband's name was Hong Kitao, and he was a big shot in the entertainment circle of Hong Kong. He had great influence in the north. Hong Kitao had had the final say in the entertainment circle of Hong Kong for 7 years. He could make anyone popular or unpopular at will. He was not only a big shot in the entertainment circle, he also had his own forces, which were even more influential than the forces of the 4 people on the South Island, including Yi Han. The entertainment circle in Hong Kong was complicated, as it was much darker than it was in the mainland. Most of the rules of the entertainment circle here were controlled by various forces. Obviously, Hong Kitao was one of the people who controlled the rules. However, he was 60 years old and had gradually delegated his power a few years ago. Despite this, his influence was still great. Hong Kitao and Tang Jie had 3 sons. Their eldest and second son were managing the company under his name. The youngest son, Hong Li, was now 20 years old. He loved to play and was also working in the entertainment circle. When Xian had been popular in the past, she had shot 2 movies with Hong Li. She and Tang Jie were very familiar. Hong Kitao was also very optimistic about Xian's future and he wanted to let her work in his own company. However, there had been an accident with Zhang Han, so they had kept a low profile in North America and occasionally contacted each other. Hong Kitao and Tang Jie had been living in the Maldives for 2 years but had recently returned to Hong Kong. Before coming back, Tang Jie had heard the news of Xian's comeback. Thus, she had called in advance and said that they had to get together. Originally, Xian had planned on visiting Tangjie before going to shoot the MV. However, she hadn't expected to hear these news today. As a result, she decided to go visit her in advance. Before they arrived, Xian dialed Tangjie's number and said that they were on the way. Tangjie was overjoyed. The mansion on the hillside along the New Moon Curve was notoriously expensive. The size and price of the number 3 mansion were both top-notch. There were all kinds of facilities available. An hour later, Xian and Zuf arrived at the mansion. Tangjie and several people welcomed them in the yard. "Wow, Sister Yan, are you driving a Bugatti? I couldn't have bought one in the past," Hong Li said in surprise. "Sounds like you don't have many cars." Hong Kitao shook his head with a smile. Xian and Zif got out of the car under their watchful gazes and hurried over to them. "Uncle Hong, Auntie Tang, Xiao Li." Xian smiled and said hello. "Xiao Yan, you're here," Tangjie said with a smile. "Let's talk in the room. I haven't seen you in several years. I've missed you." Hong Li laughed and said, "Sister Yan, I haven't seen you in a long time. I will introduce her to you." Hong Li hugged the beauty next to him and introduced them. "This is my girlfriend Ninai." "Hello, Sister Xian." Ninai, who was a little shy, greeted her. "Hello, Ninai." After saying hello, everyone went to the living room of the main residence. They sat down and began to chat. The atmosphere was very nice. At noon, Xian and Zuf stayed for a hearty lunch. After lunch, while everyone was drinking tea, Xian began to talk business. "Auntie Tang, there is something I need your help with." "What is it? Just say it. There is no need to be so polite with me," Tangjie said with a smile. "Here's the thing." Xian told them everything. After hearing her, Tangjie frowned. "The Royal Entertainment Company went too far this time. You can rest assured, I will go there with Uncle Hong later. Chapter 335, Dividing the Spoils. It was 12:40. Xian and Zuf left the number 3 mansion. Tangjie and Hong Kitao said that they would prepare before going there by contacting the board members of the Royal Entertainment Company. Was just Wu Chengdong there? Hong Kitao didn't care about him at all. After the two of them drove out of the number 3 mansion, Zif burst into laughter. "A few days ago, if we didn't go to the company, Makey would call us every day. But now, Humphrey, she doesn't care about us at all. What a cunning woman. The Royal Entertainment Company is no longer the company I used to be familiar with." Xian looked at the woods along the road as she spoke softly. "Hey, Sister Yan, how about we leave directly this time? Uncle Hong said that he wanted us to go to Honglin Entertainment," Zif said. "We could, but..." Xian shook her head slightly and said, "Uncle Hong may not be able to settle this. The board of directors of the Royal Entertainment Company is very powerful." When Hong Kitao had said this, Xian hadn't refused. However, Hong Kitao hadn't officially decided this. He thought that he could pay 300 million yuan for breaking the contract and offending the board of the Royal Entertainment Company. Still, it would take a long time for him to get back the money he had invested. It was not worth it. Thus, he would talk to them and try to persuade them to let her go. However, Hong Kitao was determined to help her with the songs. Although Xian knew this would still depend on the attitude of the board of directors. "Let's set up a studio ourselves. Brother-in-law can pay for it, then, we will be the boss and do whatever we want." Zif wagged her head and added, "Honglin Entertainment is run by Uncle Hong's eldest son, Hong Shoufeng. He is a famous playboy who also chased you for a long time. If you worked there, he would harass you every day and my brother-in-law would be angry about it." "What?" Upon hearing these words, Xian couldn't help but laugh and say, "It looks like you and your brother-in-law are good friends now." "Sure, after all, he is my brother-in-law, ha ha ha." Zif laughed. "What you said is quite reasonable, but, to set up a studio, we need some professionals. Everything needs to be done in person. We will be extremely busy at the beginning. I prefer to work with an entertainment company. After all, the company has a mature system. Although there is no right to speak at first, when I become popular, I will have more influence. Then, I will have more free time to accompany Meng Meng and my family. Xian expressed her own thoughts. When that time came, she would accompany Meng Meng and her family. Not just Meng Meng. Zif completely understood. She realized that Xian had fallen in love. Anyone with good eyesight could see this clearly. Upon hearing Xian's words, Zif thought for a while and said, "Don't worry, my brother-in-law has enough money, we can just hire other people to do everything. But we don't have any professional knowledge, we will definitely lose money." Xian found it hard to explain this to her. Even companies with a great market value could also collapse someday. There will always be a way out. Zif replied, "Let's wait and see." Xian shook her head. Everything changed so quickly. Even if they had various ideas now, they couldn't predict what would happen later. They had to wait and see. When they got back to the Royal Entertainment Company, Xian and Zuf went to the department. Soon, they sensed that the atmosphere in the department was really weird. As Xian went all the way back to the office, many people looked at her. Some of them were gloating, some pitied her, some sighed, and some felt happy. Of course, Xuanhuan was very happy. She and her agent stood by the corridor, but they made way when Xian walked over. After all, what had happened yesterday still made her feel embarrassed. When Xian saw Luce, who was a little shy, she nodded her head and smiled. This surprised the people next to Luce a lot. Hey? Did Xian just smile? I think so. She can still smile at the moment. Hey, I guess she will cry after the meeting. It's all because she's offended others. Otherwise, how could she be suppressed like this? Only one of the 10 songs will be given to her. Reality is so cruel. While people were talking in low voices, Xian and Zif walked into the office. "Right, how is the publicity going?" Xian asked. "When you chatted with Auntie Tang in the morning, it was already done. I found the Lan Landong team. They said that they are responsible for the searches on Weibo and the web pages, as well as some posts and recommendations on music software. 3 songs have been released, The Most Beautiful Expectation, The Fairy Tale Town and The Chaser." When they got down to business, Zif became serious and said, "A total of 2 days of publicity will have a great effect soon. After the 3 songs become popular, other songs will be released and the effect will be better. The others that we talked about last night are also ready." "That's good, thank you, Fei Fei." Xian nodded her head. "Don't mention it, I'm so happy." Zif waved her hand and said, "These 10 songs will help you gain popularity again. Later, thanks to the MV and your pretty face, you'll have many more fans. I can imagine you being very successful. We'll be famous." At last, Zif couldn't help but laugh. Upon seeing her like this, Xian smiled. She turned on the computer, opened the music software, and saw a picture among the recommendations on the home page. The picture was the artistic photo of Xian. Above it she saw the words, "Xian, the Queen is back with the greatest songs." There was a row of small characters below. "This is a boutique album with songs written by the top-level songwriter Han Yang. Here are 3 songs for you to listen to." This recommendation was really attractive. Xian's photos, who didn't like to see beautiful women? There was also the gimmick of the Queen's return and Han Yang's name. Nowadays, many people had gotten used to his name. The songwriter of every song on the leaderboards was just one person, Han Yang. His name was so attractive that people couldn't help but click on it. When Xian also clicked on it, she saw the 3 songs that Zif had mentioned. They began to play randomly. The first one was The Most Beautiful Expectation. Just in a few hours, nearly 1,000 comments had been made. When she saw this praise, Xian smiled. She felt even more grateful for Han Yang. The recommendation had just been made, yet it had already had such a big effect. After 2 days, more and more people would hear her songs and she would definitely become much more influential. This had a lot to do with the popularity of Han Yang. Many companies and artists believed that anyone who could get Han Yang's songs would be rewarded. She was just really lucky. She could become popular with Han Yang's help. She checked a few kinds of music software and the effect was not bad. Compared to the hot songs on the leaderboard, the data was definitely worse. However, compared to other newly released songs, the data was overwhelming. This was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Maki, who was playing on her computer in her office, also saw what was going on. Songs. 3 songs have been released. Maki's eyes gradually widened and her anger surged. Boom. She slammed the table. How dare she? Maki was very angry. If a song was sung by other artists after it was released, the effect would not be great. Plus, there were very few singers who could sing better than Zhan at the company. After all, Zhan's voice was really attractive. Maki clicked and listened to the 3 songs. Her face gradually darkened. Great. Wonderful. Now, even if another singer sang these songs, people would not buy them. This was really a headache. After thinking about it, Maki took a deep breath, picked up the landline, and called Wu Chengdong. Boss Wu, Zhan has released 3 songs. Soon, it was 1:30. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door of Zhan's office. Before Zhan could respond, the person in question opened the door. It was a secretary of the company. She looked at Zhan and said directly, "Sister Zhan, the meeting is about to begin. Please hurry up." Zhan nodded lightly. She and Zif went to the conference room. The conference room of the department was not small. There was a long table in it that was surrounded by several chairs. The seats near the wall that faced the projector were in the most central position. There were 2 rows of chairs 3 meters away on both sides of the long table. The table was big enough for 50 or 60 people to have a meeting simultaneously. When Zhan and Zuf entered the conference room, they realized that there were no seats by the long table. Wu Chengdong was sitting in the central position, with Maki on his left and Director Fu on his right. There were also several high-level leaders of other departments. Xuanhuan and a few others were also sitting by the table. When everyone saw Zhan and Zif coming in, they began to stare at them. Wu Chengdong looked at them and said nothing. There was dissatisfaction and criticism in Maki's eyes. Meanwhile, Director Fu looked at them with narrowed eyes and sneered. He knew that this time Zhan would possibly be completely blocked. Xuanhuan and a few other people were gloating, while most people looked on. A few people, including Luz, were concerned. "Sit here." Zhan looked very indifferent as she sat on a chair behind the door. About 2 minutes later, the meeting started. First of all, Maki's work is obvious to all of us. Everyone has been working very hard. Wu Chengdong spoke for a few minutes and praised some of the people present. However, his next words were rather meaningful. "Secondly, I want to praise a great hero. Last time, I said that whoever got songs from Han Yang would be rewarded. Yesterday, Zhan got 10 songs from Han Yang, which will increase the prestige and achievements of our company. This is worthy of praise." Wu Chengdong took the lead and clapped his hands. After a second, everyone followed him, bursting into thunderous applause. If someone wasn't aware of the situation, they would really think that Zhan was being praised. However, if one looked at Xuanhuan's and the others' disdainful looks, one would know what was going on. Zhan's expression became colder, and Zif became angry. Then, the projector's screen lit up and the names of the 10 songs appeared on it. Wu Chengdong clapped his hands and said, "These are Han Yang's 10 songs. Maki suggested that these 10 songs should be distributed according to the recent performance of all the people present. Thus, I'll announce the names of..." Zhan sneered. Then, a sneer came from the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw the sneer on Zhan's face. "Sorry, Han Yang gave these songs to me." Chapter 336, Making a Comeback. Usually, Zif would say these words under the circumstances. However, Zhan really couldn't control herself this time. Even the exact names of the 10 songs were on the screen. What did this show? It showed that the company had obtained the information of the 10 songs from her computer by using unconventional means. Zhan was completely disappointed by their management. Oh? Wu Chengdong raised his brows, grinned and said with a friendly expression, it seems that Xian has her own thoughts. Yes, Han Yang indeed sent the 10 songs to you, so your contribution will not go unnoticed. The reputation and benefits that these songs will bring later will all be related to you. You can rest assured. The company will not treat you badly. Don't you understand, Boss Wu? Xian shook her head and said, I said that these 10 songs are mine, they have nothing to do with anyone else. As soon as she said that, all the people in the meeting room began to discuss. Their argument could be vaguely heard. Nothing to do with anyone else. She is so ungrateful. She used our company's resources for her last album. Yeah, as an artist of the company, she can't always think about getting resources. When she needs to give, she has to give. Some people are too selfish. They just think about themselves, regardless of the overall situation. The people who were criticizing her were those who wanted to get these 10 songs. Among them were Xuanhuan, her agent, Bai Wei and a few others. Most people didn't say anything, they were just onlookers. They knew that even if the songs were distributed, they would still not get any. They were sure that Xian was being bullied this time, no matter what the others were saying. There were also a few people like Luce, who felt that the world was really cruel. Xian had gotten the songs and she could help improve the company's achievements. However, they were still trying to take the songs from her. If he were Xian, he would also be very disappointed. However, Wu Chengdong's next words gave those people some hope. He smiled as he spoke. Xian, you didn't understand what I meant either. I am the leader of the company. I should consider the development of the whole company first. If these songs are distributed, they can maximize the benefits of the company. There will be fewer songs for you, but the company will sign a contract with you. If we get benefits from these songs, you will also get a share. Of course, the company won't forget your contribution. When there are good resources later, you'll be our first thought. Although those words sounded reasonable, how big of a share would she get? He said that when there were good resources in the future, she would be their first thought. This was also just an empty promise. Sorry, I refuse, Xian said coldly. As soon as she said that, the atmosphere in the room gradually became tense. Wu Chengdong stopped smiling. He looked at Xian silently. He didn't need to say anything right now. Xian. Maki's eyes widened. She slammed the table and stood up, looking at her in anger as she said, this is the company's order. You can't say no. Fu Shan turned to look at Xian and sneered, you're rather tough, huh? I remember that you signed a long-term contract. How dare you talk back? Are you a leader? You're nothing here. Please know your own place. After the two directors spoke, none of the other subordinates dared to make a statement. It was so silent in the room that one could even hear a needle drop. After the two of them finished speaking, Wu Chengdong waved his hand and pretended to be nice. Hey, don't talk like this. Xian is also. Before he could finish speaking. Bullshit. Suddenly, this loud word was heard. Everyone looked away from Wu Chengdong's face and saw Zif standing up with an angry expression. She looked at those people and spoke loudly. You are just robbers. How could you? Don't you think you're going too far? Don't you have any sense of shame? Who do you think you are? You're just working for others. Do you think you're the king or queen? You are ridiculous. Her words stunned Wu Chengdong. He had not expected that they would dare to make such a move. What did you say? Maki's eyes widened and she pointed at Zif angrily. How dare you? Director Fu suddenly stood up and kicked away the chair near his feet. He pointed at Zif and said angrily, this isn't a place where you can say anything you want. If you insist on this, I won't stop you. I will still assign the songs, and you will be completely blocked. Wu Chengdong said coldly. Block us? I am so scared. Boss Wu, you are really amazing. Why don't you block the entire entertainment circle in Hong Kong? Zif sneered. This is too much. Aren't you being too arrogant? If you don't want to work here, then just get out. Fu Shan took 2 steps forward while pointing to Zif furiously. A few employees sitting in front of Xian and Zuf were shocked. They looked at Fu Shan carefully, for fear that he would get really angry and hit them. Now that things had come this far, the other people present went completely silent. They didn't dare speak. However, while everyone was silent in the room, a colder voice came from the door. "I think the person who should get out is you." Swish, swish, swish. Everyone looked in that direction immediately. Then, all the people present were shocked. They immediately began to speak in surprise. "Dang, Tang Jie, Hong Kitao? Why did they come here? My God, Hong Kitao is here. What's happening?" They saw 7 or 8 people standing at the door. In addition to Tang Jie, Hong Kitao, Hong Li and Ninai, there were several other people who were wearing black suits. They all had flat-top haircuts and cold expressions. Everyone present knew that they were Hong Kitao's personal bodyguards. When Tang Jie finished speaking, she took the lead and walked in, walking straight over to Director Fu. Wu Chengdong and Meiki were also shocked. Hong Kitao was a really influential figure in Hong Kong. He alone was more powerful than half of the board members of the Royal Entertainment Company. He couldn't be underestimated. However, it seemed that these people didn't have good intentions. Wu Chengdong began to smile and got up to greet them. However, as soon as he took a step, Tang Jie had already reached Fu Shan. She didn't say anything. Instead, she slapped him across the face. Kaboom! This was like a thunderbolt in a clear sky. Everyone was completely shocked. As they watched what was happening, their brains went blank. Fu Shan was also shocked. Last time he had been beaten in Shangjing, the swelling had just gone down. Now, his left cheek was burning hot and his ears were ringing. As he looked at Tang Jie helplessly, he faintly had something on his mind. Last time, he had been against Xian and gotten slapped in Shangjing. Right now, in the conference room of the Royal Entertainment Company in Hong Kong, he had been against Xian and gotten slapped again. Why was that? Fu Shan opened his mouth to say something. However, Tang Jie slapped him again in the face. Fu Shan's right cheek also went numb. He was completely stunned this time. He didn't know what to do. He was at a loss. Then, Tang Jie stopped slapping him and opened her palm. Upon seeing that, Ninai, who was standing behind her, quickly took out a wet wipe and put it in Tang Jie's hand. Tang Jie wiped her palm, which was a bit numb, and casually threw the wet wipe on the table. She stared at Fu Shan angrily and said, "Get out." Hiss. Fu Shan's whole body trembled, but he also felt a bit relieved deep inside. Thus, he nodded quickly. Yes. Then, he bowed and walked out with small steps. At the moment, everyone in the room was stunned. Why did they feel like this was Tang Jie's home court? She had asked Director Fu to get out and Director Fu had obeyed. Xian and Zuf also stood up and walked over to Tang Jie. They nodded and said hello. Who else bullied Xiaoyan today? I'll give them a beating too. Tang Jie glanced over at everyone present. When she glanced at Bai Xuanhuan and the others, their faces turned white. They quickly lowered their heads, not daring to look at her. She had even dared to slap Director Fu in front of everyone, so she wouldn't hesitate to slap small potatoes like them. Even Meiki's eyes roved. She quickly sat down and lowered her head, as mute as a fish. She couldn't even hold a candle to big shots like Tang Jie and Hong Kitao. In the end, Tang Jie's eyes were fixed on Wu Chengdong. Wu Chengdong's face was a bit stiff and he looked a little embarrassed. This was the company he was managing, yet a director had just been slapped. He wanted to question her but didn't have the guts. "Mr. Hong, Mrs. Hong, welcome, please sit." Wu Chengdong rushed over to them and welcomed them with a smile. Before Tang Jie could speak, Hong Kitao took action. Instead of beating him, he just raised his right hand and grabbed Wu Chengdong's neck from behind. He stared at Wu Chengdong while speaking slowly. "I heard that this isn't the first time that this kind of thing has happened. Is that right, Xiaoyan? Did he bully you this time?" Hong Kitao's cold words made Wu Chengdong's whole body become stiff. He was so nervous and scared. Hong Kitao was not just a tycoon in the entertainment circle, he was used to fighting for his business with tough, ruthless means. He was such an influential person. As he faced Hong Kitao, Wu Chengdong was really terrified. Even his face gradually became pale. He looked at Xian helplessly, with remorse in his eyes. If his eyes could talk, they would be begging at the moment. Upon seeing this, Xian licked her lips. One should be lenient whenever it was possible. Thus, she said calmly, "He didn't bully me, it's just that I didn't agree with his plan." Phew. Wu Chengdong felt relieved. If Hong Kitao got angry and hurt him, the board of directors wouldn't do anything about it. Oh, ha ha. Hong Kitao smiled lightly. He patted Wu Chengdong's neck with his right palm, showing his disdain that way. "Sit down, Boss Wu," Hong Kitao said lightly. "Okay." Wu Chengdong's eyes expressed his helplessness. He sat back and forced himself to smile. "Mr. Hong, Mrs. Hong, Hong Li, Xian, please sit down." Hong Kitao ignored him and glanced at the other people in the room. He waved his hand while saying, "Anyone who isn't related to this, just get out. Don't disturb us." As soon as he said that, everyone present, including Meiki, got up and hurried out. Given the situation, Meiki did not dare stay. As she was walking past Xian, she did not even dare to raise her head. Xuanhuan, Bai and the others all acted like that. They were just like students who had made a mistake. While facing the teacher, they just bowed their heads and walked out. They were so scared at the moment. God, please don't let Xian call my name now. Chapter 337, Problem Solving. Tang Jie's behavior was really scary. She had slapped twice Director Fu's face and put fear in everybody's hearts. Just think about it, if she slapped me in the face. Hiss. It would hurt badly. A little pain was nothing. After all, they would recover in a few days. However, offending Tang Jie was akin to offending Hong Kitao, and offending Hong Kitao was. Just thinking about this made everyone feel cold both in body and mind. They felt as if they had fallen into an ice hole. Fortunately, Xian did not pay attention to them. When they went out, they all felt relieved. Phew. When the door of the conference room was closed, those people looked at each other. They all saw some kind of relief in everyone else's eyes. That was so depressing. I was so scared that I didn't even dare to breathe. Yeah, that's the great Hong Kitao. My God, this legendary figure came personally here today. Hey, Sister Xian is really powerful. She doesn't speak much, but at a critical time, she invited this powerful person over. She is really something else. Yes. Even Luz, the young man that had always been shy, couldn't help but speak. The point is, things have really gone too far this time. Right, if it were me, I would also use my connections to settle this. The onlookers were talking, but the people who coveted the songs didn't feel very well. These songs certainly had nothing to do with them. What's more, those who had been active these days had already offended Xian. They were all a bit depressed, especially Meiki, who had been very involved in this whole thing. At the moment, her face was a little pale and her eyes were dull. She was at a loss. Tang Jie came back. I had already thought about Xian's connections. Nobody else could settle this thing, or she wouldn't have invited them. But Tang Jie, I ignored her completely. Wasn't she abroad? When did she come back? While thinking about this, Meiki felt extremely depressed. Even Wu Chengdong had been involved. She thought they would nail this thing, but Xian had made a move at the last moment. It was a move no one could resist. If this thing developed any further, it was possible that her position would be at risk. She had no support. Li Cheng. He was still a small potato compared to Hong Li, let alone a big shot like Hong Kitao. What should I do? Meiki laughed bitterly in her heart and began to regret this. System, what should we do now? Xian even invited Mr. Hong over. Xuanhuan, who was worried, approached Meiki. Shut up. Meiki said, looking disheartened. "How should I know what to do? What can I do, if it was not for your repeated requests?" "Stop speaking, don't bother me." Meki interrupted her angrily. She knew that it was useless. When Xuanhuan heard these words, she bit her lip hard in desperation. She had been targeting Zhan, but now it seemed that she had always been a joke in Zhan's eyes. Why can she know such influential men, when I can't? Xuanhuan felt extremely depressed. Okay. Upon seeing that everyone was standing in the hallway in front of the conference room, Meki waved her hand and said, "Everybody leave now. What are you still doing here? Go back to work." After hearing her words, people decided to leave. Suddenly, two people appeared at the end of the corridor in a hurry. When Meki saw them, she quickly walked over, smiled and said hello. "Hello, Chairman Ming." "Cut the crap." Chairman Ming didn't look very happy. He frowned and pointed at Meki while saying, "You made Mr. Hong come here. You are really something else. All of you, stand still." Meki's face paled in fear, and the look in her eyes showed that she was confused. The others rushed to the sides of the corridor while they watched Chairman Ming and his assistant go to the conference room. Before entering the room, a smile appeared on his face. He opened the door and entered. Before he closed the door, people faintly heard Chairman Ming laughing and speaking politely. "Mr. Hong, long time no see." Less than 2 minutes after he came, Chairman Ma, Chairman Shi and Chairman Yan also arrived. Half of the 9 board members of the Royal Entertainment Company were here. This really made them feel dominated. Meki felt very insecure. This was a game between big shots. If it didn't go well, maybe she would get fired. Time passed by. The stone pressing on everybody's hearts seemed to be getting heavier and heavier. Gradually, Meki and the people who coveted Zhan's songs became increasingly nervous. They were very thirsty, but they did not dare leave to drink water. Some of them even wanted to pee, but they didn't dare go to the bathroom. They just stood straight on both sides of the corridor, waiting for the final result. They waited for an hour. When the door of the conference room was opened, everyone looked that way. The first people to come out were Hong Kitao and Tang Jie. They were very calm now. They ignored the people around them and walked to the hallway through the corridor. As other people came out, they noticed that the board members were smiling at them. In the end, Wu Chengdong came out. He didn't look very good. He had obviously been severely criticized. The others did not know how they had solved the problem. Behind Hong Kitao, Hong Li and Ninai chatted softly with Zhan. Meki and the others were ignored by Zhan, who did not say anything. Zuf stared at Xuanhuan and Meki, but they did not dare lift their heads this time, so they naturally did not notice. "Xiaoyan, I will go back first with Uncle Hong. We will stay in Hong Kong for a while. If anything happens, just tell me." Before entering the elevator, Tang Jie held Zhan's hands and spoke to her gently. "I know, thank you, Auntie Tang." Zhan grinned and said, "I will visit you later, Auntie. I will be waiting for you." Tang Jie smiled gently, as if she was really her auntie. When she was finished, she, Hong Kitao and the others went into the elevator. "Bye, Sister Yan." Hong Li waved his hand. "Bye, Sister Zhan." Ninai also waved her hand. Zhan nodded with a smile. "Mr. Hong, take care." Several board members were saying goodbye. Hong Kitao nodded his head lightly before the elevator door slowly closed. "Zhan, the company was wrong this time. Please don't take it to heart. The company will do its best to make your album for you. Rest assured. Now go back to work," Chairman Ming told Zhan with a smile. "Thank you, Chairman Ming." Zhan nodded. After speaking for a while, Zhan and Zuf returned to their office. Meanwhile, Chairman Ming and the others calmed down. Chairman Ming glanced at Wu Chengdong and said, "Call the leaders of all the departments here, we will have a meeting." After he spoke, he took the lead and walked to the conference room. It seemed that some people would definitely be severely criticized that day. Zhan and Zuf returned to the office. Zuf was very excited. She had been depressed for so many days. but she had finally vented her anger now. Although Xian laughed occasionally, she wasn't surprised at all. Everything had gone as expected. When the board members had come, Tang Jie had not spared their feelings. She had criticized them face to face. Hong Kitao had also said that he wanted Xian to work for his company. He could pay the cost, but he would not give them 300 million for breaking the contract. At last, the board of directors had politely declined by saying that this matter would be discussed at a board meeting. They had come in person to solve this problem, but they hadn't directly agreed to let Xian go. The board of the Royal Entertainment Company wasn't composed of useless men. When they gathered, they were also quite strong. Hong Kitao was very powerful, but not so powerful that he could force them to give up their employees. To maximize their benefits, they had indirectly expressed the following thought: if Xian insisted on leaving, she would have to pay liquidated damages of 300 million. They also wanted to see how determined Hong Kitao was. When Hong Kitao had not said this again, they had realized that the purpose of his visit was just to solve this problem. They had talked about business at the beginning and then spoken to each other for a while. Hong Kitao had come to their company and slapped their man. He should have considered the feelings of the leaders of the company. In the end, he had chatted with them for a while and left. The board members returned to the conference room. Wu Chengdong called the executives of all the departments, as well as Director Fu, who had been slapped earlier and gone back to his office to get an ice compress. The meeting lasted more than half an hour, but no one knew what its content was. The others only saw the board members leave expressionlessly after the meeting. Wu Chengdong looked defeated as he followed the other executives. The last one to come out was Director Fu, who was down in the dumps. Maki's eyes were completely red and she looked desperate. The other executives were also lowering their heads. Obviously, all of them had been criticized severely. The reason they were in such a bad mood was probably because their bonuses had been deducted a lot. Maki returned to the office, took out the ladies' cigarettes she kept in the drawer, and smoked 3 of them successively. Then, she took out her cell phone and dialed Li Cheng's number. "Mr. Li, how's everything? Was the problem solved?" asked Li Cheng's lazy voice. "No. Xian, she brought Tang Jie and Hong Kitao here and made a fuss. 5 board members came and the whole thing became worse," Maki said bitterly. "The board members were so angry that they wanted to fire me. Later, Boss Wu told them that this was your idea, so they spared me. Before they left, they said that they would talk to your father later. I have no other choice. Now, I can only try my best to help Xian with the album." What did you say, Hong Kitao? How is this possible? They're going to talk to my father? Li Cheng was shocked. He immediately became furious. He had never expected this. Earlier, he had thought that he'd definitely take down Xian. Who'd have thought that she would make such a move? Gradually, Li Cheng couldn't control the anger in his heart anymore and started to smash things in his bedroom. He smashed his belongings hard. Maki heard a few loud noises that were followed by a beeping noise. Obviously, the cell phone had also been smashed. Alas! Maki sighed. Chapter 338, The Busy Restaurant. It was conceivable that Xian would gain popularity and become popular soon once she released this album. What should I do? I have absolutely offended Xian this time, and Li Cheng is still really angry. What should I do in the future? After thinking for half an hour, Maki called Xian up. "Hello, Xian, please come to my office." A few minutes later, Xian and Zif came. Maki, who was about to cry, said, "Xian, I'm so sorry, it's all my fault, but I couldn't disobey him. It was Li Cheng who nominated me as a director. He took a fancy to you and he has been making it difficult for you to become popular. I can't disobey him." She chose to tell Xian honestly that it was Li Cheng who had placed obstacles in her way. She also adopted a pitiful attitude to ease their tense relationship. Even if they could not become friends, she would be in a much better position if she wasn't her enemy. After Maki told them the whole story, Xian and Zuf finally learned what had happened recently in great detail. It turns out that Li Cheng is never on my side. He's indeed a disingenuous man with an ulterior motive. Li Cheng pretends to be gentle in front of us and offers his help solicitously, but he's caused us trouble in secret. After staying in Meki's office for more than half an hour, Xian and Zuf left. Now that Meki had told them who had caused them trouble with an innocent expression, their relationship had become somewhat better. Although it was impossible for them to be intimate, they were not hostile to each other anymore. Even Zif remained silent, as she was too disinclined to say anything. She could feel that she and elder sister Yan would not be in the royal entertainment company for a long time. During this period, Meki would just be one of their superiors. I didn't know that Li Cheng had begun to cause us trouble ever since you released the first album. Besides, he arranged the subsequent programs with the purpose of giving us a bad name. How hateful he is. Treacherous men like him should go to hell. After returning to the office, Zif vented her anger. It is hard to fathom what people think. Xian shook her head slightly and said, I just didn't expect that Li Cheng would be so good at making petty moves. Since Auntie Tang took action this time, the board of directors will be under great pressure. I think Li Cheng's father will definitely give him a harsh lesson. Zif curled her lips and said, I will mock him the next time I see him. Ha, ha, ha. Upon looking at Zif and imagining what she would do when she saw Li Cheng, Xian burst into laughter. When she saw Xian laugh, Zif laughed as well. Obviously, elder sister Yan was in a good mood, as this trouble was over. Therefore, after thinking for a while, she said, let's see whether the songs get good ratings. You released 3 songs today, and you can release 3 other songs tomorrow. Furthermore, we can put the remaining 4 on a record. This is the perfect plan. Xian nodded. The two of them browsed through web pages optionally. The day's publicity worked to some degree, and the 3 songs Xian had released rapidly reached the top 50 of the new song list. This was just the beginning. The effect would be significantly enhanced when more software users went online at night. There was no doubt that these stunts were really attractive. Besides, more news appeared in the most searched hashtags on Weibo. Han Yang generously gives Xian 10 hit songs. Does he appreciate the beauty, or is he pursuing her? This information attracted a lot of people's attention. Soon, everyone in the circle knew about it. After hearing the news, they were surprised at first. 10 songs? Really? Then, they felt totally shocked. They believed Xian would definitely become famous since she had been given 10 songs by Han Yang. Eventually, they became envious of Xian. MMP, these were 10 fine songs. Why aren't I that lucky? Those who envied Xian's luck would go crazy if they knew that Han Yang was Xian's husband. In their opinion, once a person captivated Han Yang, they had a mobile songbook. At 5 o'clock, it was time to clock out. Therefore, Xian and Zuf packed their things, walked out of the office and went downstairs. Quite a lot of people were getting off work. This time, their attitude had changed dramatically. Hello, elder sister Yan, elder sister Xian, elder sister Zuf, elder sister Yan, elder sister F. Upon catching sight of them, many people greeted them with a smile. Xian responded as she had a few years ago. She curled her lips and nodded slightly. Everyone who met Xian gave way hurriedly until Xian walked into the elevator. When the elevator went down, many people shook their heads and sighed with emotion. How generous and informal elder sister Xian is. It makes sense for her to succeed, for few people can be so broad-minded. A few years ago, elder sister Yan was really famous. It is conceivable that elder sister Yan will become popular again over time. Some of these people had spoken ill of Xian, while others had ridiculed her. They had not expected that Xian would respond with a nod when they greeted her, so there was only one feeling in their hearts: admiration. Of course, a few people, including Zhou and Bai, hid in the corner when they saw Xian. They were standing at the end of the corridor, too afraid to show themselves. Xian and Zuf took the elevator to the first floor. Under everyone's watchful gazes, they got into the supercar and slowly left. The two of them returned to the restaurant. There were plenty of diners lining up in front of the restaurant, and many people were sitting inside while Zhang Han was making dinner in the kitchen. "You're back." Zhang Han glanced at Xian and spoke with a smile. "Yeah, what's for dinner tonight?" Xian looked around the kitchen several times. "Is there any meat?" Zif asked directly. "We'll have chicken stew, spiced goose, fried foie gras, and some cold dishes," Zhang Han replied. "I'm hungry." Zif grinned. "Is Meng Meng upstairs alone?" Xian glanced at the sofa. Under ordinary circumstances, Meng Meng was watching TV on the sofa on the first floor while Zhang Han was cooking. Wang Yihan and Wu Guang came here. "They are playing upstairs." "Oh, let me go have a look." Xian nodded and went upstairs. What a lively scene. Wang Jian, Su Yu, the three children, Zhang Li and Liu King were all on the second floor. Adults and children were playing a team game called Eagle Catches Chicken. At the moment, Wang Jian was playing an eagle, while Su Yu was playing a hen. Behind her stood a row of people who played the chickens, everyone grabbing the clothes of the person ahead. Meng Meng and the other two children were in the back of the line. As Xian and Zif walked upstairs, the game started, so they stood behind and watched for a while. "I'm going to sharpen the knife," Wang Jian said loudly. "Why will you sharpen the knife?" Su Yan, who played the hen, asked. "To catch your chickens and kill them." "Why do you want to catch my chickens?" "Your chickens ate my rice and drank my water, so I intend to eat them." "Can you catch them the day after tomorrow?" "No." "Can you catch them tomorrow?" "No." "When can you catch them?" "Now." The two of them made a passable conversation, which made the three little guys in the back of the line get nervous. Therefore, they stared at Wang Jian carefully. After speaking, Wang Jian rushed over to this group of people. The three children were so scared that they screamed repeatedly and ran from side to side behind the adults. After a tussle, Wang Jian eventually caught Zhang Li. This round of the game was over. Upon seeing Xian and Zuf, everyone present greeted them. Meng Meng actually threw herself into Xian's arms and stayed there for a few seconds. Then, she ran back and asked them to continue to play. Xian returned to the bedroom to change clothes, while Zifeng participated in the battle. After finishing the conversation, Zhang Li began to catch people and eventually caught Zif. Zif played an eagle and moved quickly from side to side. After a moment, she ran to the back of the line and held Meng Meng tight. "Ha ha, I caught you." Zif laughed. "Huh?" Meng Meng was stunned all of a sudden. She blinked her big clear eyes and twisted her mouth. "How did you catch me?" When she saw Xian step out of the bedroom, the little princess pitifully asked for help. "Mama, Mama, I was caught. Meng Meng is going to be eaten." Xian burst out laughing. "She won't eat you. It's time for you to play the eagle." Zif pinched Meng Meng's cute face. "Huh? I can play an eagle, great." Meng Meng only remembered that the person who was caught would play the eagle when Xian reminded her. Suddenly, she was delighted. Meng Meng ran to the front of the line. Although she thought for a while, she failed to recall the opening dialogue. Therefore, Meng Meng pouted as she looked at Su Yu. I'm an eagle. I want to catch your chickens, stew them and eat their meat. I'm going to start." As Meng Meng spoke, she began to move. Su Yu tried to stop her, so Meng Meng ran around her. After chasing them for several minutes, Meng Meng eventually ran to the back of the line. Su Yu had deliberately lost the game. She held Zhang Li's leg and said with a smile, "Auntie Lili, I caught you. Ouch, I'm about to be eaten. What should I do?" Zhang Li pretended to be sad. "Huh?" Meng Meng froze and then comforted her in a hurry. No, I won't eat your meat. It's time for you to play the eagle. Meng Meng's expressive face always made adults laugh. After catching Zhang Li, Meng Meng asked Mama to join in the game. Xian grinned. Then, she finally took part in it and played for a while. The three kids, who ran happily, had sweaty foreheads. They did enjoy themselves. The game was not over until Zhang Han came up and told them that there were only 20 minutes left until dinner. Eagle catches chicken is really interesting. Meng sat on the sofa and looked at Xian. Then, she pouted and said, Michael and Ivan have never played it before. Mama, we can play together the next time I see them. Okay, we can play games together later. Xian smiled. Meng, who are Michael and Ivan? Wang Yihan asked curiously. They are my good friends who live in San Diego. Meng said. Are they foreigners? Wu Guang said, feeling a little embarrassed. Yes, they're foreigners. Their hair and eyes are not black. They're my foreign friends. Meng said while blinking her big eyes. As she mentioned the word foreigners several times, everyone burst into laughter. Xian also gave Zif an angry stare. Meng had learned the word foreigner from Zif. Children acquired knowledge really fast when they were young and could easily keep what others said in mind. Chapter 339, Unfathomable. I don't like foreigners, but I like Meng, Wang Yihan said with a smile. I also like Yihan, Meng replied as she laughed. Wu Guang, who felt somewhat embarrassed, took it to heart and said, I like Meng too. Upon seeing the little boy's appearance, Xian and the others could not help but smile. If Zhang Han had been here, he would have been lost in thought. I also like Meng's daddy because he cooks really delicious dishes. I can't get enough of them, Wang Yihan said as her eyes brightened greatly. I like my papa very much. Meng followed suit. Me too. Wu Guang was like a weathercock that said whatever the two little girls said. I like Meng's mummy as well, she's so beautiful, Wang Yihan said while staring at Xian. My mama is really beautiful. Meng threw herself into Xian's arms. I like her too. After glancing at the two little girls, Wu Guang looked at Xian and repeated the same thing. The interaction of the three children made the adults present burst out laughing. This time, Meng said first, I like Auntie Lili and Auntie Fei as well. I also like Auntie Lili and Auntie Fei. Wang Yihan repeated. Me too. Wu Guang followed suit. I also like. The three kids mentioned all the people present. Actually, they forgot Wang Jian, who was the only male in the room. The children seemed to totally ignore him. Wang Jian was still waiting aside earnestly. 1 second, 2 seconds. Half a minute passed. Despite his eager gaze, the three little guys actually changed the subject. What they did made Wang Jian feel as though he did not exist. Ahem. He coughed slightly and said, Yihan, Guang, Meng, don't you like me? No. Wu Guang was impolite this time as he spoke playfully. I don't like my daddy either. Wang Yihan smiled. Huh? Meng, who was surprised, failed to understand why they did not like Uncle Wang. She blinked her big clear eyes and stared at Wang Jian for a moment before she muttered, if neither of you likes him, should I like him? You shouldn't like him. Say what we just said, Meng, Wang Yihan said. Very well. Meng nodded. Wang Jian's face was as hard as stone. He was completely speechless for a while before he said angrily, I'm going to cry over the fact that you don't like me. Go ahead, Daddy. Wang Yihan said relentlessly. She was aware that her daddy was just joking. How could he cry? Oh. Wang Jian pretended to be sad and cry while covering his eyes with his hands. Meanwhile, he observed the three kids' expressions through the spaces between his fingers. When they saw Wang Jian truly crying, the children were at a total loss. Ouch, Uncle Wang, don't cry. Meng, who was kind-hearted, waved her hand in a hurry and said, we also like you. Stop crying, Daddy, don't cry. I really like you. I also like you, Uncle, said Wu Guang while stepping close to Wang Jian. Dang, ha, you should like me. Wang Jian took his hands away while he was laughing. What, Daddy, you're a liar, you did not cry. Wang Yihan said as she pouted. Huh? Didn't you cry, huh? Meng Meng muttered. Upon seeing the expressions of the two little girls, Wang Jian did not know whether to laugh or cry, for he absolutely could not really burst into tears. While they were speaking, Zhang Han went upstairs with 2 dishes in his hands. When they caught sight of him, Zhang Li, Luo King and Zif rushed downstairs to help him with the dishes. Xian, Wang Jian and Suya led the 3 kids to the rectangular dining table by the window on the 2nd floor. Since Zhang Han's family and Zif usually ate at the tea table, this table was rarely used. After a few minutes, all the dishes were almost served. Let's drink this bottle of wine today. Eventually, Zhang Li went upstairs, carrying a bottle of Lafite. When Wang Jian glanced at the wine, his mouth trembled slightly. He had glanced over all the wines on the wine cabinet downstairs, so he knew that they were worth a lot. When he heard Zhao Du saying that the wines had been sent by Liu Qingfeng, he was shocked. Wang Jian choked on his own vomit and did not recover from the shock for a long time. The more frequently he contacted Mr. Zhang's family, the more unfathomable he found them. Wang Jian felt really lucky to be familiar with such people. It was very fortunate that Wang Yihan got along well with Meng Meng. According to a saying, whoever loves someone also loves their dog. Because Meng Meng liked Wang Yihan and Wang Yihan was pleasant, the ties between Xian, Wang Jian and Suyu warmed up gradually. This was a very common worldly wisdom. Moreover, Wang Jian decided that he would bring Wang Yihan to play with Meng Meng whenever he was free. In fact, friendship was based on constant contact and sincerity. Although some people had lots of relatives, it was impossible for them to keep in touch with all of them. However, people who were not very close to their relatives would have true friends and foster better relationships with their friends than with their distant relatives. Each relationship needed effort and sincerity. People were likely to treat scheming individuals who thought others would not figure out their true intentions as a joke. Wang Jian now realized what this meant. He intended to stay in touch with Zhang Han and his family in earnest. Actually, he had kept this idea in mind ever since he had come over with Wang Yihan for the first time and had been conquered by Zhang Han's cooking. However, he had felt stressed when he'd found out that Zhang Han was really formidable. Now, he just wanted to follow his heart. The dinner, which included balanced portions of vegetables and meat, was quite hearty, so all the adults and children enjoyed it. Meng Meng and the 2 other kids ate as quickly as birds. After having dinner, the 3 of them ran to the sofa and began to play with their toys. At the dining table, when the adults were almost full, they started drinking red wine and chatting. Occasionally, they would take a bite of food. By the way, Xian. Suyu had suddenly remembered something. Thus, she put down her chopsticks and said with a chuckle, I browsed through Weibo on the way here and saw that you emerged endlessly in the news. In addition, I learned that Han Yang gave you 10 songs. I listened to the 3 songs you released. They sound really great. You sing very well. When will you release the other 7 songs? I can't wait to listen to them. Xian grinned and said, I'll release 3 songs tomorrow, but the remaining 4 will be released after a period of time. This album will make Xian's popularity soar. I think that the 3 songs you released will definitely win a lot of prizes. You will become a top singer soon, Wang Jian said with a smile. Thanks for your lucky words. Xian chuckled. Upon hearing this praise, Xian felt very excited. After all, Wang Jian did not laud her blindly, she only told the truth. I just checked your Weibo. I remember that you had 6 million followers in the morning, but now you have 10,000 more. Suyu sighed with emotion. They are increasing really fast. Hey, today is the first day, but our publicity has already taken effect. I estimate that the number of Xian's followers will increase dramatically next week if we release 3 more songs. After netizens divert their attention, we will release the album and MV, which will apparently attract people's attention once again. Zif shook her head as she spoke. She had a specific plan for their current missions. How awesome is my sister-in-law? Zhang Li stuck out the tip of her tongue. It's all thanks to Han Yang's generous help. He is even more awesome, thanks to his identity as a lyricist. He possesses 70 million followers. How terrible, he is called. The instant Zif mentioned Han Yang, her eyes lit up. She was about to praise him recklessly when, ahem. Xian pretended to cough inadvertently. She kicked Zif in secret. Thus, she stopped Zif's next words. After thinking for a while, Zif glanced at Zhang Han, who was standing beside Xian, and said after a pause, although he is awesome, my brother-in-law is even more outstanding. His cooking skills could help him conquer the world. When she finished speaking, Zif laughed several times. She knew that elder sister Yan was worried that Zhang Han would be jealous. If she were in her shoes and had a boyfriend who made great progress with the help of a woman and praised the woman while they were having dinner, Zif would also feel uncomfortable. When Zif changed the subject all of a sudden, Wang Jian and Suyu understood her intention, despite their initial surprise. Therefore, they agreed hastily. Yeah, Mr. Zhang's cooking is really amazing. He is the most powerful cook I have ever seen. I can't help eating, even though I seldom have dinner at night. That's right, brother Zhang Han's cooking is the best in the world. Liu King also agreed with some relatively ostentatious words. My brother is undoubtedly awesome, Zhang Li said with a smile. Upon looking at their expressions and hearing what they said, Zhang Han did not know whether to laugh or cry. He found it really interesting that they had praised Zhang Han and then suddenly stopped. Are they afraid that I will be jealous? How could I be jealous of myself? No one mentioned Han Yang again. Instead, they talked about some interesting things that had happened in their daily lives. After dinner, Zhang Li, Zif and Liu King cleaned up the table. At about 7:30, Zhang Li and Liu King went to work. Wang Jian, Suyu and the two kids did not leave until 9 o'clock. Zif also left with them. While watching Zif getting into the Bugatti, Wang Jian felt a little dizzy and thought to himself, they're unfathomable. He believed that Mr. Zhang was powerful all the time. However, as he met him more frequently, he discovered that what he had known before was only the tip of the iceberg. How is someone who owns a supercar worth over 60 million yuan only the boss of an ordinary restaurant? Are you kidding? He is living the life. In the evening, Zhang Han told stories to coax Meng Meng to sleep as usual. After Meng Meng fell asleep, Zhang Han and Xian could do whatever they wanted. He had been counting down the days. Xian had had her period last Sunday, so he'd had to restrain himself until Friday. However, Zhang Han had not expected that he would wait for so long. Usually, Xian would have a day off on Sunday, but Meiki had enthusiastically booked the company's best shooting team for Xian. Furthermore, she had arranged subsequent press conferences and entertainment programs for her. Xian had been completely busy. On Sunday, the team had begun to shoot some MVs of the songs in Hong Kong. Then, they'd had to shoot the scenery of the places of interest in the mainland and try their best to create an album of good quality in all aspects. A few days had passed quickly. 7 days ago, Jiang Zong and Zhang Han had reached the agreement that they needed to compete with each other on Mount Yunding. Today was the day. Chapter 340, on Mount Yunding. Mount Yunding was located in North Hong Kong. The northern area of Hong Kong was relatively large. The South Island only occupied about 1/10 of Hong Kong, while Mount Yunding was located in the Jiantang district of the northern area, separated from the eastern district by a bay. Thus, it was not far from the South Island. Mount Yunding, which was overgrown with luxuriant clusters of trees, was more than 500 meters above sea level. There was a winding road leading from the foot of the mountain to the mountainside. On the mountainside, which was more than 300 meters above sea level, was a parking lot and some facilities. If people parked their car there, they had to climb the mountain. On top of the mountain was a south-facing platform where everyone could stand and enjoyed the scenery of the Jiantang district, as well as the view of the bay between the Jiantang district and the South Island. This was indeed a place with a pleasant scenery and fresh air that attracted many mountain climbers. On this day, More than a dozen men in black suits guarded several intersections at the foot of Mount Yunding, for a small party for martial artists was being held that day on Mount Yunding. Those who attended this party were all wealthy and respectable. The guards allowed rich people to pass and asked unfamiliar people to hold the dynamometer. Only if their indicators were up to martial artist standards could they get through. Meanwhile, mountaineers were kept out. On the platform at the summit, 2 rows of chairs had been placed in a semicircle. Zhang Zongyao was sitting in the most central position, tasting the freshly brewed tea slowly. There were about 17 or 18 people sitting next to him. Some of them were strong men in their early 20s, some were old martial artists over 60 that appeared 10 years younger, some were women between 30 and 40, some were young ladies at 17 or 18, and others were teenagers about 13 or 14 years old. The people who came the earliest were from martial artist families. Some of them had been brought there by their elders to broaden their horizons, while others had come to communicate with their peers. Master Jiang, I heard that you have stepped into the Earth stage. Congratulations. A middle-aged man in a tang suit saluted Zhang Zongyao with a smile. I was so lucky to reach this stage. I went to a snow mountain in the mainland to fulfill a task and gained insight on the top of the snow mountain before finally breaking through to the Earth stage. Zhang Zongyao shook his head slightly, feeling somewhat proud. In this circle, most martial artists' strength was about the same. When he had been at the profound stage, he had been a relatively powerful figure. However, now that he had broken through to the Earth stage and his value had risen dramatically, it was much higher than these people's. Therefore, he would have an opportunity to come into contact with people of superior circles. I have been stuck at the peak of the profound stage for 3 years. Although I tried to both seclude myself and walk around the world, I failed to find a way to improve. Can you advise me, Mate Jiang? The middle-aged man in the tang suit asked. Zhang Zongyao glanced at him. This person was called Mu Wu. When he had been young, he had obtained an opportunity to be a martial artist. However, he had neither taken part in any forces nor led the family to engage in business. He was only interested in martial arts, so he could be considered a martial arts addict. As soon as Mu Wu finished speaking, 3 other people's eyes brightened. They were all at the peak of the profound stage, so there was only one step left before they became Earth stage masters. However, they had failed to find a correct way to break through, as the distance was as thin as a window paper and extremely mysterious. After hearing what he said, Zhang Zongyao got lost in thought. Tell you the method? Bullshit. These skills are indeed precious. This is my own opportunity and experience. Why should I tell you? After thinking about how to speak to them, Zhang Zongyao found the right remedy. He glanced at Mu Wu and said, I can tell you, but I actually have a condition. You should join the National Security Agency and be my direct subordinates. Only under this condition will I inform you about how I broke through in detail. I can promise that you will reach the Earth stage within 2 years. What do you think? He was about to be promoted to Deacon of the National Security Agency, and he would become a custodian in the future. When that time came, he would gain even more resources. In fact, this was the true starting point for people who wanted to be superior. So there was a qualitative leap from being a deacon to being a custodian. However, if he wanted to be promoted to a custodian, he needed at least 5 direct subordinates over the profound stage. Zhang Zongyao had come to Mount Yunding early for the sake of this matter, actually. He usually showed up after 12 o'clock. If Mu Wu accepted his proposal, he could share with him some experiences selectively. Join the National Security Agency, forget it. Mu Wu shook his head with a smile and said, I like freedom, so I don't want to participate in any forces. I heard that Brother Jiang is a deacon now. Another man in his 30s laughed as he spoke. Yes. The relevant personnel has already submitted an application. I think it will be approved in a week, Zhang Zongyao answered with a nod. Congratulations, Brother Jiang. Given your aptitude for martial arts, You are bound to become a heaven stage master in the future, experience a meteoric rise and step into the upper circle of the martial arts world. The man flattered him. Then, other people also agreed. Master Jiang will rise soon, please don't forget us if you get promoted in the future. Master Jiang's strength is obvious to all, plus, he got promoted by virtue of his painstaking efforts. I really admire him. That's right. As Jiang Zongyao listened to their praise, his eyes gradually filled with complacency. Upon realizing that they were about to stop speaking, Jiang Zongyao coughed lightly and spoke up. You can rest assured, I will contact you once I have some good tasks. Thank you very much, Master Jiang. Everyone saluted him, expressing their gratitude. Oh, by the way, Jiang Zongyao, who had suddenly remembered something, said while looking at Miwu, Xuanhuan, also known as Master Gu, will come over later. He recently touched the barriers of breaking through to a heaven stage master, so he is indeed in a good mood. If you have some questions about martial arts, you can ask him directly. If he is willing to tell you what to do, you will benefit tremendously. What? Master Gu will come over later? Miu Wu's eyes widened as he said in amazement. Master Gu is a legendary figure, although he is only 41 years old. He will soon be promoted to a heaven stage master. It's so amazing. I did not expect Master Gu to come over. I will be really lucky if he offers his suggestions to me. Brother Jiang, I heard that Master Gu injured a sect elder badly in Shenzhen last month, but I don't know if this news is true, another person said curiously. As soon as he finished his words, everyone looked at Jiang Zongyao. It's absolutely true. Under everyone's gazes, Jiang Zongyao nodded and said, I was coincidentally preparing to go to the snow mountain and went there via Shenzhen. When I heard of this matter, I went to watch the match. Master Gu won really easily by only using 3 moves. How mysterious his silver dragon hand is. His opponent was the elder of the Shifang sect, who has been at the peak of the earth stage for 5 years and possesses great strength. However, in the face of Master Gu's silver dragon hand, he was seriously injured within 3 moves. Master Gu is indeed a real master. At the time, other elders from the Shifang sect said that Master Gu should be promoted to a heaven stage master within half a year. Master Gu is worthy of being called a master. He's really awesome. He is a role model for us. Everyone sighed with emotion again. As they chatted with each other, some people went up the mountain in succession. After about an hour, there were already 50 to 60 people on the mountain, many of whom were rich people. Some others were juniors who had gone there for the sake of broadening their horizons. However, only the rich people and martial artists who were relatively powerful made a statement. The others all listened to them humbly. Hey, the atmosphere is very lively this time. Suddenly, a loud voice was heard behind the crowd. Everyone looked around and saw a man with cropped hair in a Chinese tunic suit standing quietly on the tree that was rooted in the cliff more than 10 meters high behind them. Upon seeing him, Jiang Zongyao hurriedly stood up and saluted him. Then, he greeted him reverently. Hello, Master Gu, welcome, please sit down. While speaking, Jiang Zongyao pointed at the main position, where he had just been sitting. This position was reserved for the most powerful man, therefore, he could have sat if Xuanhuan had not showed up, otherwise, he did not qualify. Ha ha. Xuanhuan chuckled and touched the branch with his tiptoe, then, he fell down from the air, under everyone's gazes. He directly fell in front of the chair and slowly sat down. Experts were indeed generous when they gave an order. Many people present thought that his move was really extraordinary, although he had only fallen through the air. When Xuanhuan sat down, Jiang Zongyao sat down beside him. Then, other people got up hurriedly and greeted him. Hello, Master Gu. It's indeed a surprise that Master Gu could come today. Master Gu, long time no see. There was no denying that everyone greeted him with enthusiasm in succession. In the meantime, at the foot of Mount Yunding, a white Bentley drove past the guards and headed for the parking lot on the mountainside. Yi Han and his father, Yi Qi, were sitting inside the car. "Dad, why did you bring me here today? Is this a big occasion?" Yi Han asked curiously while sitting in the back seat with his father. "Xuanhuan, you aren't young anymore. It's time for you to get into contact with some upper-class circles. Today, I brought you here to enrich your experience. This party is for martial artists," Yi Qi, who had grey hair and some wrinkles, answered. "A party for martial artists? There must be a large number of martial artists here." Yi Han's eyes lit up slightly. "Yes, I heard that you sent the Maybach to a martial artist named Mr. Zhang. In my opinion, it is too easy for you to get excited because you haven't been in contact with enough martial artists. Now that you have come into contact with this circle, I'll show you this party." Yi Qi shook his head with a smile. "Mr. Zhang is very powerful," Yi Han said. "He has a subordinate who is invulnerable. In fact, many people in the martial arts world are invulnerable, so this doesn't mean anything. There are a lot of real masters on the mountain today. The reason I promised to take the car to him is because I want you to make new connections with martial artists." Yi Qi chuckled. "Dad, do you mean that Mr. Zhang is not in a high position in the circle of martial artists?" Yi Han asked. "Yes, if he was in a high position, how come I have never heard of him?" Yi Qi shook his head again. "Really? I also heard that Liu Qingfeng, also known as Chairman Liu, gave Mr. Zhang his treasured liquor," Yi Han said in confusion. "Chairman Liu likes making friends with martial artists, therefore, he sometimes sends some liquor. Moreover, Mr. Zhang is unlikely to be in a high position, for he uses the title of Chairman Liu to preach." Yi Qi, who found this somewhat funny, said, "Xuanhuan, you are still too young. You'll learn that there are many martial artists in this world, but only a few become very powerful after several years." Yi Han felt a little confused as he said, "So, the investment I made by sending the car to Mr. Zhang failed?" "Not really. After all, you have an association with him. What you did worked. However, I think Mr. Zhang's value is laughable." As Yi Qi spoke, he shook his head with a smile. What he meant was obvious. He meant that Mr. Zhang was not worth more than 60 million yuan.